Good morning, everyone. It is November the 8th, and welcome to Leaside United and Rosedale United Church's children's program here in Toronto. Today, we are going to learn and talk about the end of Moses' journey in the desert and uncertainty about the future. You will need your Read, Wonder, Listen Bible if you have one, but if not, don't worry, we'll read the story together. And for today's craft, all you are going to need is a piece of paper and some pencil crayons, or markers. If you're watching live, this is the time to gather those materials. And if you're on the YouTube video, this is the time to pause and get what we need. Let's begin. Now it is time to light the Christ candle. Do you remember why we light the Christ candle each week? It is to remind us all that every one of us has a bit of God's light within us, and to remind ourselves of God's presence. For today's breathing activity, we are going to do a huge hug. And so I want us to start by taking our arms from our sides, stretching them out to either side as big as a tree. Stretch out. And then we move our arms forward right in front of us. And can we have our arms cross over and give ourselves a big hug? How tight can we squeeze? Squeeze. And let go. Whew. Very good. Since Thanksgiving weekend, we have been hearing stories about the Israelite people after they escaped from slavery in Egypt. The stories tell us they spent 40 years in the wilderness. 40 years is a long time. They followed Moses, who spoke to God about what they needed, and were given food and water. While they were in the wilderness, God gave Moses the 10 Commandments to help them act in ways that would show love for God and each other. This week, we will read the last part of the story of Moses, when Moses and the people have come to the end of their very long journey and are about to settle into the new land. Moses is very old by now, and it is time for a new leader. When the people of Israel had been wandering in the desert for 40 years, God told Moses it was finally time to move on to the promised land. After all those years, many things had changed. People who were old when they had left Egypt had died. Children had grown up. New babies had been born. This new generation did not remember the bitterness of slavery or the sweetness of passing through the waters of freedom. They had never tasted manna or stood at the base of the holy mountain. Would they keep the promises their parents and grandparents had made? Moses did his best to make sure. He told the old stories over and over. He taught the ways of God. He tried to plan ahead. He divided the people into tribes and chose leaders for each tribe. He had also appointed priests and judges and elders to carry on the work when he was gone. So he gathered them together and said, "Hear, O Israel, the Lord is our God, the Lord is one. You shall love God with all your heart and all your soul and all your strength. Teach these words to your children," urged Moses. "Bind them to your foreheads and hands and write them on your doors, so every time you go in and out you remember. It is not enough to lean on the faith of your parents and grandparents. Each generation must choose for itself." "Very soon," said Moses, "you will go among people who have very different ways. If you remember and follow the ways of God, you will live well. But if you forget, you will be scattered, just like those long ago who thought they were so wise and wonderful they could build a tower to heaven." Then God led Moses up to the top of Mount Nebo. From there he could see the land of Canaan spread out before him. For a long time Moses sat alone and dreamed about a future he would never see. But it was hard not to know how the story ended. But Moses knew that God had been with him all along. He trusted that God would go with the people. With a thankful heart, Moses died. The people of Israel spent days crying for him. Then it was time to move on. Joshua was chosen as the new leader. Filled with the spirit of wisdom, he took his place at the head of the people and got ready to lead them to the promised land. I want us to think about Moses at the top of the mountain just before he's about to die. What do you think he's thinking right now? Do you think he felt peace when he was sitting alone on the mountaintop? He trusts in God's love for the people and that the people helped him feel peaceful even in a difficult time. When Moses is on the mountaintop, he dreams about what will happen to the people. He is probably filled with hope for the future and hope that everyone remembers. All that God gave them, all that Moses taught them. He hopes that they will remember. Remembering is a huge theme in this story, isn't it? Moses is worried that the people will forget what they're being taught. And so he does all of these things to help them remember. I want us to think about the ways that we remember the past. It might be through stories and storytelling, just like this one. It might be music or songs. It might be through holidays, like Moses' people will celebrate Passover and the weekly Seder supper. And for us today, it might be Remembrance Day, so that we do not forget those who have died in wars and conflicts in the name of peace. We have holidays, and we have art, and we have songs, and we have stories. What are other ways that we remember people of the past? For today's craft, we're going to create word art. And word art is when we take words of a story and put it together to create one large picture. So, like I said earlier, all you need is a piece of paper and a bunch of pencil crayons or markers or crayons, whatever you can use to write words with. And we're going to begin by just outlining a very simple design, not fancy at all. For example, it could be a little ribbon. I'm choosing sort of a winding path down the picture. Making it nice and big. Not perfect, and that's okay. So if this is my winding path, you can go with a heart, you could go with a tree, you can go with a rock, whatever design you want. And then we're going to fill in words all through here to create some word art. So I like to repeat a couple of words as well and put in names and put in ideas. And if we're having trouble remembering how words are spelt, or if they're too big, we can also put some little pictures in here. Let's get started. I'm going to start with God up here right at the top. And I like to put God at the very bottom because God was at the beginning and end of each of these stories. Then we can put in, I have this nice orange color here. With my orange, I'm going to write Moses. We can put in the Egyptians that were at the very beginning of the story. And over here, we can put maybe the Israelites. And I have a nice blue that we can use. We just keep going along here. At the very middle, I'm going to put love. And I'm going to draw a little heart. Because not all of the drawings need to be word art. Some of them can be like little itty bitty doodles. Just like that. And our handy-dandy assistant Couscous is here. Hello, Couscous. Do you have any words you want to put in? Tuna? No, tuna wasn't in this story, silly. I think she wants to have a pencil crayon. Here you go. There we go. All right. I filled in the rest of my little ribbon or river with all the other words I can put in. We have commandments, we have promise, we have names like Moses and Abraham and Isaac. So we have lots in here. And the thing that I'm seeing, the common theme throughout all of this, is that we are called to remember all of them. Remember where the people came from, remember what they went through, remember where they're going, and remember that God is through all of it. And so I'm going to finish my drawing by writing along here, remember. It doesn't have to be perfect. It just has to be yours. Let us go out into the world, giving thanks for all who lead us through uncertain times, like Moses. And let us remember them in all the ways that we can. Story, song, holidays, and art. God is with us. We'll see you next week.